places. As you know, Tim, I'm a big reader of the Journal, the Wall Street Journal. There's a lot of stuff there, but there's I don't know if you use, if you do any type of budgeting. I do mine up here in my head. If you're in a situation where your money's coming in at an uneven rate and you're especially in this situation, if your money coming into to you is upended for any reason, um, due to due to the virus situation, right? So if that's happening, you may want to perform something called a budget. And let me ask you up front, do you do anything like that, Tim? Do you do any budgeting, at least in your head, or write anything down, or?
Yeah, we do like we got like I kind of have it broken down into like stuff you have to spend every month, like car insurance, car payment, all that kind of stuff. And
Absolutely.
yeah, I did this like probably a year ago, and I ended up cutting a lot of like variable costs and stuff. So like I got my cell phone down. Like I used to be on like a plan and stuff for Verizon, had like a nice phone and stuff, but then like I don't know, like 3 years ago, I was like, nah, I'm not gonna do that anymore. So I started to buy like the budget phone and do like the $30 a month plan.
I'll do you one better. I'll tell you what I do. I do uh, a phone company out of Mexico, one of the wealthiest people in the world. Do you ever hear of a guy named Carlos Slim?
No.
He is one of the he's the wealthiest Mexican, and he's always in the top 4 or 5 in the world. Like, I don't know, he's worth 60, 70 billion dollars. Well, he is a huge communications monopoly he controls in Mexico. And one of the companies he owns is a company that comes in here to the United States. It's called Track Phone. And Track Phone is a I can say it, prepaid plan. Say that fast 10 times. And I got and you can use it on any phone. 3 weeks ago was my birthday. My wife got me a iPhone. It was an older iPhone, so she got a deal on it, which is good. That's what we're here to talk about, deals, right? And uh, I basically pay about I think it's about 110, $120 for the year. So break that down. That's about 10, $11 a month. And I get buku minutes, and I can pretty much text as much as I want. And I have to admit, I don't do a lot of video on it, but I don't need to do a lot of video. But that sounds like you did, though, a great thing. You said you had it. Let me ask you a quick question. You said you had that down to $30 a month. That's now. What was it before?
Before it was more like 130 or 40.
A month?
Yeah, because you're like you yeah, because like you owe for the phone, and it's like a small loan you're taking out for your phone almost.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
I
there
did
are
that once, and then never again. So obviously that's
smart.
crazy.
So by making that move, you might have created an extra 90 to $100 a month in your wallet.
Yeah, and it's like the same level of service too. Like I have, I've never run out of data, unlimited call and text. So I didn't even. The only thing I really gave up was like a top-notch phone, which it doesn't even really matter these days because the last real nice phone I had, I think when I got it new, it was like a Galaxy like 5, 6 or something.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, every year it's just they make strides and it gets cheaper. Like the phone I had now that I bought for $300, it's probably more powerful than the phone that I spent $1,000 on
Wow.
3 or 4 years ago. You know what I mean? Or no, five, maybe six. I don't know exactly when it was. Maybe like 5 years ago.
Wow.
But like it just because the technology keeps advancing. I just kind of realized that a mid range phone that you buy for cash for $200 or $300
Right.
is just as it's almost like you're not even giving anything up when you're that extra $600. You don't get anything like the diminishing return on that.
I'll tell you, I didn't have phone on my list, but I'm glad you brought it up because if anybody does view this recording, I mean, you've taught them something. That is a big deal. You've learned you're getting the same, almost the same, pretty much the same product for a lot less money. And if you can save close to $100 a month just by that one move, that's pretty impressive. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, I have a Pixel 3A. Literally is $300. You can buy it right now. You can join any network prepaid for about $30 a month, and
Wow.
I mean, I can turn my data on anywhere, go on the internet,
That's
YouTube,
great.
all the stuff you need to do, you can do.
Yeah.
Camera's great, so I don't understand what for me, I would never ever pay more than a couple $100 for a phone, just knowing that the difference is just not at all there. You're not getting anything
No,
extra.
no, no, and that's a good point. And by the way, Tim, and Tim knows this, Andrea, that I just hit a button and I'm in WebEx, I'm sharing my screen. So Tim, you guys should be able to see my screen now in front of you.
Yeah.
And, the other source, and I'm going to point this up now, is I've been a big follower for decades now of the consumer advocate guru Clark Howard. Clark Howard is he's on TV quite often. He has a radio program on every afternoon, right where you are, Tim. In you're not far from Geneva, and you're just east of Geneva, right, over in Seneca County.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
20 minutes.
he's on an AM radio station, the Finger Lakes Radio Group every afternoon. He's on now while we speak. I think he's on from like 2 to 5 out that way. I live, as you know, Tim, I live far away from there. I can't pick him up on radio, but he has a podcast that I listen to on a regular basis. What you're looking at now is Clark.com is his website. And he has, you see where I'm scrolling over, he has a plethora of information. You could be here all day looking at this, but if you go to the guides area, underneath there's a button on budgeting. There's also one on cell phone plans too. When I was hovering up, right, see under guides here, if you click on that, there's also something on cell phone plans like we just talked about. And if you go down here, he talks about the process of doing a budget. It sounds like that you were doing that. There's a workshop, there's a worksheet he has right here, and I'm clicking on it just so you can see this worksheet. And I'm putting my viewer in Acrobat Reader. So if anybody's watching this on a recording, anybody can just follow that website, and there it is. And this is a nice, if you didn't have it, it sounds like this is something similar to what you said about a year ago, Tim, where you list down, and it sounds like you did that with your cell phone plan and other things. You put your budget category, like in your case, you'd put what, cell phone, right? And then how much you think you'd like to utilize out of your income, whatever would it be? In your case, you got it down to $30, and see what you actually are doing. You can do a before and after type thing. And if you were to list in a budgeted category of a number of things that you spend money on a regular basis, it gives you awareness as to what it is you're spending on and what you might need to work on. I about a little over a year ago, I had the pleasure of talking to Clark Howard. I actually sent him a note, and his producer called me and had me come on his show. It was a year ago in March, and we talked about this, something that for the past 3 years, I've been studying this, and finally I pulled the trigger. I think, Tim, I might have mentioned it in class a couple of times. This TV. I have last summer, I cut the cord and I got rid of, I used to have DirecTV, couldn't stand them. And now I stream and I pay hardly anything to watch entertainment in my house. It's ridiculous. I have YouTube TV for $50 a month. I can record anything I want off it. Um, it's a beautiful product. And what I've done was I turned my TVs. I went into bought something called a Roku device, spelled ROKU. Have you ever? I don't know if you use one or ever heard of one, but basically it turns your TV into almost a web-based computer where it has applications, and there's a ton of free TV on there. You don't even need a subscription TV service or Netflix or any of that stuff if you really don't want to. Use a ton of free TV. So if you were in a situation where you're in a bind and you honestly are in a bind and you're looking for ways to cut big time dollars, but yet still have some form of it, get some information into your house, get some entertainment. You can do it with hardly any money at all by going to a Roku device and streaming versus cable and satellite are ridiculous. You could be paying over $100 a month, and the what you're getting isn't. I was finding I was in that situation, and all the stations were garbage. There was nothing I watched, and then I made this switch. Now I have plenty of things to watch, and I spend a fraction of what I used to. Are you, Tim? Do you have any kind of entertainment? Do you sign up for any TV or cable or anything like that?
Yeah, kind of. The cost is shared though, so it's not like the full amount. But if I was just paying for that myself, we have like a Spectrum, like a silver package, and that comes out to like about $182 a month, and
Mhm.
that's with maybe like 20 or 40 promotional dollars off too. I don't even think that's the full, you know, that's
But you're getting more than your entertainment. You're also getting your streaming in there too. You're getting your high-speed internet, correct?
yeah, that's internet and TV together and a phone.
Okay,
Oh, it's not a phone actually. We took the phone off, and that saves about $10.
it does. I do that. I get to streaming in the phone. I'm with Charter as well. Charter Communications, which is basically Spectrum's just a brand name, and they charge me 75 a month. I get plenty of Wi-Fi, all I need to stream, and I get a phone for 75 a month. And then
Yeah,
I get YouTube TV on top of it for $50. 70 channels, they're all good channels and stuff. So I pay about 125 a month for more than enough entertainment, a ton of stuff. Um, but like I said, though, a lot of, if you were in a position where you wanted to cut, I could actually cut YouTube TV, still get local stations. You can get the local stations. There's an app called News On, which you can get any local station in the almost any city in the United States. You can get all three Rochester stations, the CBS, NBC. You can watch their news programs. So you can, and it's on a slight delay. So if I wanted to watch this morning 6 o'clock morning news, I was watching it while I was exercising this morning. It was about 7 o'clock this morning, and I was watching the 6 o'clock broadcast like an hour later, which is no big deal. But that's like free. So you can get things like news and entertainment going in there. Another quick thing besides TV, this is a coronavirus thing. Now, Tim, I do know a little bit about Tim, and I know that you're not driving as much nowadays, Tim, as you used to. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
no, hardly at all.
How,
Twice a month, maybe.
who is your insurance, if you don't mind? Well, you don't, maybe you shouldn't say it, but I don't know who your insurance company is. Did you know that most automobile insurance companies now, if you call them and tell them that you've had a change in your lifestyle, where, say, for example, you're not driving anymore because you got something happened to your job, or I know for a fact you're not driving to the college anymore because you're here talking to me sitting at home versus driving to the college. If you call your insurance company, most major insurers are now offering a rebates of anywhere from 15 to 25% off your insurance premiums. So you know how you prepay your insurance for your car insurance? Normally it's per year or every 6 months you pay ahead of time, right? You always pay car insurance ahead of time. Well, because none of us are driving, there's no collisions and no accidents going on out there, relatively speaking. So these insurance companies are making a ton of money because they're not paying out for claims. So you could go back to them and ask your insurance agent or your insurance company and ask them if you would qualify for a rebate on your premiums. I'm with Liberty Mutual, and they're wonderful. I've been with them for decades. And I called them last week, and they actually credited back my bank account. That's how I normally pay for my annual insurance. And I got that it was about a week ago. I got that. It was about Thursday. I got it. It wasn't much because uh, me being old, I don't, my premiums aren't as high when you're older. When you're a younger person, especially if you're a male younger person, automobile insurance, you pay more. That's the most expensive category. So like if you're an 18, 20, 25-year-old male and you're listening to this recording, you want to contact your insurance company if you just lost your job because of the virus and you're not going to school anymore because you're driving less miles. That could be a substantial amount of money, depending on your insurance company. I've heard the biggies, State Farm. Well, I told you Liberty Mutual does it. I believe Geico, and I think Progressive. Um, I'm trying to think what I read. Most of them are doing, because once a couple of them do it, the rest of them have to start following through because it makes them look bad. So, Tim, you might want to think about calling your insurance company and seeing if they can send you back the money.
Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna write that one down. Actually, I didn't think of that.
Uh, a couple other things I've got down here. I don't know your situation, Tim, but if anybody is listening to this on a recording, you may not know this. Your mortgage payments and rent payments, depending on who your landlord is, many folks are going to what's called forbearance now. If you are in a hardship position where you just lost your job, and you're going to have trouble making your mortgage or paying your rent, your landlord may give you some extra time to pay it, rather than, and I believe there is through the state now, they can't officially evict you if you're late on your rent because of the virus. They passed, I think that's a state law, if I'm not mistaken, where here in New York, they'll do that. So if you're late on your rent, you think you're going to get kicked out, um, the first thing you want to do is, if you're late on your mortgage or rent, whatever you do, staying silent is the worst thing. You have to immediately call your landlord or call your mortgage company and you tell them, I'm having an issue. Most folks are going to work with you because during this virus situation, it would be easier for them to work with you than for them to kick you out and find a new tenant. Because finding a new tenant in this virus situation, is tough. These landlords are hurting, and they need to, or mortgage companies. So they need to work with, they want to work with you. And not that you're never going to owe the money or anything like that. Um, they're not doing it necessarily out of the goodness of their heart, but they realize that, it is a business. I need my money, but at the same token, I can't get anybody else in there. So, hey, maybe you can't pay the full rent this month. Maybe you can give me $100 or whatever, and we can work out a plan. So that's another area where you can go. Here's an interesting one that I'm not, this is one I don't practice because I'm not making a personal money management decision on this. And I don't know about you and your household, Tim, but food. So, you know, there is a really low-end, cheap grocery store here in Western. Actually, it's all across the country, but very few people that I know of shop at it. It's pretty popular in some regards, but if you're in a situation where your wallet's stretched and you lost your job because of the virus and so forth. Tim, have you ever heard of Aldi's?
Yeah, that's we shop there regularly. So
Oh, you do? Good. Good for you. Then I don't have to tell you. Um,
yeah, I already know.
you're sounds like you're doing some good things here. That's great. Aldi's, if you were to go to Aldi's versus say Wegmans, how much money do you think by going to Aldi's, how much money do you think you're saving, Tim?
At least $100. I mean, depends on what you buy.
Yeah,
The only thing at Aldi's that they're great and everything. It's just they just don't have as much as like Tops or Wegmans. So you can
understood. Understood.
we go there. We spend maybe like 1 to 150 a month. Well, like, that's all we can really get. It's a lot of the staple stuff.
Right,
Milk, eggs. Their
right.
dairy is good. Their dairy's pretty great.
Yeah, but
A lot of
I agree with you 100%, but that's if what I'm saying though, if you're in a bind, boy, you can go there and really save a ton of money.
oh man, you probably get at least for the amount of money. If you were to walk into Tops with $100, $200, and you were to try to fill up a grocery cart, it's not going to happen. You do it at all these though. I mean, you can walk out. You are. I mean, your bags are full. Like you definitely get 2 or 3 times more for your money than anywhere else.
And
So,
I don't go in there that often. I'll admit I go to Wegmans, but again, I'm not making a personal money management choice. I'm making a lifestyle, and I enjoy the things you mentioned. I'd rather have the selection. I pay a little bit more for the service and the selection vis-a-vis what you get at Aldi. But I've been to Aldi's, and I was there about a month ago before this virus thing. I had some extra time. There's one maybe not far from my house, about 20 miles up the road. And the I hadn't been there recently up until that point, and I was kind of impressed with they had a nice selection of produce, fresh vegetables, canned foods. They did have some meats. It wasn't a full butcher like you have at Wegmans, something like. And I'm not really a meat. I'm a fish eater. They did have a nice selection of fish, not as much as you'd see at Wegmans, but they had some. But if so, I agree with you. If you're in a very nice bakery section too, but if you're in a bind, boy, that is an area, like if you are truly stretched, boy, that's the area that I could see why people would want to go there. You do give away some of the aviance, but boy, it is um, quite a way to stretch your dollar, so to speak. So to go to Aldi's, and the good news is their German counterpart, which is called Lidl, they are making their way to the United States. They are the second German low-cost grocer that's being imported from an import from Germany here into the United States. They're down in the Carolinas now, and they're starting to make their way into parts of the United States. And as they get in, that's going to put a lot of more competition, not only with Aldi, but Walmart and Wegmans and Tops. It'll just put more pressure on them to cut down on their prices. So, one more thing I saw. So I mentioned the Wall Street Journal. Let me just go over here to. I got it. This came this morning in the Wall Street Journal. Take a look at this article. So okay, let's talk about, maybe this is a quote unquote non-essential item for some of us, right? But look at this right here, this article. It's Black Friday again in April. This article is about retail. It's about clothes. You can get some nice high-end clothes right now real cheap, because what's happened is, over the past month, nobody's been going into these stores because they're closed down. And we're talking Gap, Saks, stores like that. What they're doing is the normal procedure, or I should say flow of goods, is if some of the high-end sellers like Saks Fifth Avenue or J. Crew or somebody like that can't sell their clothing. And here it is, it's the end of April, even though a few minutes ago I was looking out my window here and there was snow flying by. It's the end of April. And here's the thing, right? It's the end of April. So these retailers, clothing retailers, especially high-end ones or fairly high-end ones, they always work a season or so ahead. So they're looking towards summer now. So they want to get rid of some of their spring stuff right now, especially winter stuff, early spring stuff they want to get rid of. Because whenever in this virus thing, a lot of them aren't equipped to sell a lot of things online. They're not big online players, because that's not their target market, right? So what's going to happen is they have a plethora of clothing. They can either try to hold on to it till next year, but you know how clothing. Trust me, I mean, look at, what do I know about fashion? But things go out of fashion easily. So if they hold on to it till next year, they run the risk of it becoming obsolete, the clothing, the dresses and the pants and what it is that they have, right? Places like Saks and Nordstrom and J. Crew and those types of places. What they normally do is they'll if they can't sell it by the end of April, they'll offload it to some of the TJ Maxx's and the Ross Dress for Less and the Burlington, those types of places would take it off their hands, give them some money for it, and resell it to some of us, right? But those places are out of commission now too, because none of those places, or very few of them, operate online stores. So what they're doing is, a lot of these places like Nordstrom is, here, I'll just grab this paragraph if you can see it right here. Saks Fifth Avenue ran a one-day flash sale last week with spring dresses up to 70% off. And Nordstrom is offering up to 40% off on certain styles. J. Crew is offering up to 60% off spring styles. And the Gap is selling everything for 60% off. So clothing isn't quite as essential as food and some of the things we're talking about, like your rent, mortgage, and food. But boy, because of the virus, there's a deal there. So if you are in a position where you want to buy some clothes and take advantage, you do have some money and you want to take advantage from a shopping aspect, you can try to go into their websites, and they're offering some styles to get rid of these clothes that came in, say, January and February into their physical stores. And now the virus hits in March. And now all this stuff is they obviously didn't sell everything, and now they're stuck with all this stuff. And who knows when we'll all be able to go back into these stores. We know that there are some states that may within the next week or two, you might be able to do some shopping in stores. Certainly not here in the Northeast, but maybe they'll move some merchandise down south or wherever where you're allowed to do shopping. But for the time being, you might be able to look for some deals there, to on the clothing retailing side. So thought I'd throw that out there. And every day I see little articles like that in the journal. Clark Howard's Clark Howard's got all kinds of stuff like that. Let me just go back here for a second, Tim, because I started to go this route. Let me just see. Under guides, he has, and I thought I saw one on cell phones. There it is. Fifth one down, cell phone plans. So he would have information on cell phone plans and so forth. All right, I've been talking for a bit, Tim. I know you wanted to sit back and take in some of the stuff, but you have any questions or any particular topics that are of concern to you regarding personal money management? Anything involving, we're just talking about virus-related things, but there's everything is such a broad topic. You can go into investing, you can go into, speaking of investing, this is a great example. When you talk about doing a budget and you look at what your income coming in versus your expenses going out, one of the first things you should do when you get into a position is try to save a certain amount of cash for reasons that we are all going through right now. And by the way, I'll quiz you on this, Tim. What do you know how much in a perfect world, in theory, how much cash you should have on hand and I don't mean under your mattress. I mean, you stick it in a bank, put it in a money market, something like that. Do you know how much cash you should have?
Usually like 6 months of your salary is a good starting point.
Absolutely. There's two ways you can do it as a percent of your income, and you said 6 months of time in relation to your income. The second way is you could say 3 to 6 months of what you would normally spend. So you can do it off the income part or do it off the expenditures, either one. So if you find out that you're spending so many thousands of dollars every 6 months, you can target that. That way, if something happens and we have another pandemic and nobody's working for 6 months, at least for 6 months, you can pay your mortgage, go buy food, and so forth. Those are the people who are surviving a lot better during this month of March, April into May than those who never saved and never have that cash available. So yes, you hit the nail on the head. But there's so many other areas though to cover. Do you have any questions or any topics that you'd like to go over?
Yeah, do you think that like right now is the time to like increase your contributions to like an IRA or do you say just stay the path like what you're normally doing, increase it, or would you pull it back?
Do you do what's called dollar cost averaging? In other words, a percent of your paycheck goes into a certain plan. Is that what you do?
Kind of. I kind of do that, but I more have a fixed amount that goes towards an IRA monthly.
Okay, that is dollar cost. So you're dollar costing in once a month.
Yeah.
No, that's fine. You do the last thing you want to do is don't do it. I mean, you want to. The stock market has been down so much, generally speaking.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, do you think like more should be like right now? I only contribute to like an IRA, but like I could like open up a general like taxable account and just like buy more basically. I didn't know if you know. kind of your thoughts on it.
Does your the you plan on going back to where you worked before, correct, Tim?
Yeah.
Do they have a plan up there? Uh, that do they have an investment plan where, let's say, that is a for-profit company you work for, right?
Yeah.
And do they have a plan where they will match if you like if you sign into a what's called a 401k where you can invest on a regular basis and then they do a match?
They do have a 401k option, but they don't match it currently.
But still, you want to take it when I'm talking about now when things go back to quote unquote normal. Okay. Um, you, and I know your question was different. Your question says now, but I want to say first off, in the long run, you want to you want to take advantage of that because you know the advantage of 401k is the money comes off the top and you're not taxed, right? So,
Yeah.
yep.
I kind of factor that in. I don't. The thing is, I don't really make enough money to where like taking a certain percentage off would put me in a
Okay.
lower tax bracket. So I'm more
Okay.
like I'm more going for. I have like I don't use them. I use like my own account
Yep.
for a Roth.
Oh, it's a Roth.
Yeah,
Good, because
because
there's two kinds. You can do a traditional and a Roth. So the Roth, you're putting after-tax money in, correct?
yeah,
Okay, so that's what a Roth is. You put after-tax money in. And the beauty of the Roth is when you go to withdraw it someday, you're not going to pay any taxes on it.
yeah.
So, so you want to keep contributing to that. So the maximum is, oh boy, I lost my limits here. Is it 6 grand a year you can put in?
Yeah, they
Okay,
just raised that this year.
$500 they did, 6 grand. So there used to be 55, I think, 5,500. So you want to make that voluntary contribution. Absolutely, I would not stop that. You do not want to stop that. So so if you're doing the math here correctly, you're putting in 500 or so a month, correct?
Yeah,
That's fine. I would do that. And depends on what you're talking about retirement. So assuming that's decades out, you want to try to diversify that as much as you can. Put it in ETFs, which are good, electronic traded funds, because there's not much cost. And is there one a fund you're putting it into, or is it a variety?
it's like a collection of ETFs.
Oh, good. So it's spread out.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Good. That's good. The more diversity, the better. The more diversity, the better. Assuming this is retirement money, you don't need it soon, correct? You're not retiring within a few years, right?
yeah,
Well, I have to say that because the how you invest depends on your objective, and that's your time frame. If you're
yeah. We're
retiring,
probably looking at like 30 years, I'd imagine.
then you want to be aggressive, and yeah, you don't worry about the stock market dipping. As a matter of fact, the stock market dipping is a good thing for you because you can buy more shares.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what my question was. Like, do you think like maybe it would be worth it to, instead of just 500 every month, would it be better to put like a grand in now and,
Yeah.
and maybe hope that, that we get more like of a V-shape rebound rather than like a U or
Or the L where it never comes out.
right. That's what I mean. Is it?
I'll tell you the official safe thing to do is keep doing what you're doing dollar cost average because you don't know if it's just like oil. I thought we talked about this morning, right? I thought oil hit rock bottom a couple weeks ago when it was 20 bucks a barrel. And then yesterday it went negative, so you don't know what the market's going to do tomorrow, next month. You don't know what this virus is going to do. You don't know if we're going to have a second wave that hits us in the fall and then the market crashes again. So I would say the safest thing to do is stick to your plan of a few hundred every month into that variety of ETFs. Um, that way, that's the most conservative play. If you say, hey, I'm allowed 6,000 a year and I'm going to throw most of it in now, that, that might work. But then again, what if, the market could still tank over the next month and go lower, and then you could have put that in. So, the safest thing is just keep doing what you're doing. Don't even look at the stock market. Just 500 every month, and just say, don't even look at what the stock, know what the stocks are doing for your general information, but it shouldn't deter you at all. I would keep investing as you're doing, because it sounds like it's a good plan.
Yeah.
So that's the way I would do it. And we talked about this too. The other from a personal money management standpoint, we're not driving, and this is a frustration part of personal money management, right? You're going to probably see the price of gas continue to go down, but the flip side is we are not driving. So what good is it? So that's a frustrating part. But I would just, if I were you, I would just stay the course. It sounds like you're doing a lot of good things. You're shopping at the right places, and
Yeah, this I've done a lot of reading and stuff on like this topic, so that's kind of why I'm here. But I mean, it's just you know, I've it's definitely worked. I've only really been going kind of like with a minimalistic type of mindset. You try to like cut cost wherever possible, and then you invest your extra money. And I can tell you, if you're diligent, and even if you don't make like way a lot of money, you start seeing gains. You know, it's I don't know, it's kind of satisfying.
it is. But don't let it discourage you. I remember not too long ago, about 12 years or so ago, that's the last time we had a big dip, although not as big as this one, but it was quite a big dip in 07, 08, 09. I probably lost about half my retirement savings then. I'm not kidding you. It all came back and then some. You know what I did? I did, like you suggested, I started, as I was dollar cost averaging, I was dollar cost averaging more. Um, you can, when you're in a um, and you may not be in that position now. Someday, you come out. I think we talked about this briefly this morning about your future career. When you identify a career, you go on, you get your bachelor's degree, maybe an MBA, and then you're in the business world. You're going to probably be with an organization that will have a retirement plan, a 401k. They a lot of times will, first off, your ability to invest is incredible. The limits are, I believe it's up to $20,000 a year you can invest in a 401k. And if you're with a good company, they may match a portion of that. Basically, that's giving you free money. And what I did was I kept increasing my amounts of dollar cost averaging during the downturn. And as things picked up, I didn't have much money, but I had a lot of shares. So each share, as it started accelerating through 2010, 11, 12, it came back. It comes back. That's the beauty of time. If you have time, it's never, not to use double negatives, but it has never not come back in the history of the stock market. It will always come back. If you have time, then by all means, I would keep doing it. What you're bound by right now is that $6,000 limit, because it's an IRA. If you were in the company 401k, like I said, I believe it's about 20,000 you can put in there. Now they may not be matching, and I understand you might not be in a position to put in much more, But when you are in that position after, as we discussed here, when you get out of school, you're now working in, one of, finance or whatever, what that, like we talked this morning, right? You're in that position, you're going to have more income, and then you'll be in a position to look into investing more. Still dollar cost average. You don't want to ever give that up, but you want to, you can increase your amounts, and then when you see these dips, you can even increase them further. So, in the future, that's what you can do.
Heck yeah, sounds good, man.
What other, anything else, while we have you here that you might be of, concern or regarding personal money management? We've covered a lot of topics here.
No, I'm I don't know. This is kind of like a hobby of mine, so it's I'm privy to a lot of this.
What about other insurances? Do you, I don't know, do you have any kids?
No, I don't.
Okay. One of the things you might want to look into if someday you, especially if you have kids, and this is an important personal money management item, is look into life insurance. And life insurance is for the protection of your family. Let's say you do have let's say you do have kids someday and you have a family, then you may want to do that. That would be a personal money management move for you in the near future. That's not related to the virus, but that's another aspect, you could always, you want to put in the back of your mind, because it'll probably be important to you, and to the people around you. So that would be certainly something to look at. Insurance on your personal property and liability insurance, things like that. Those are always good moves to make and money well worth invested when you, if and when you get into that position, as well as, create a will for yourself.
Yeah, I haven't done the will yet.
Well, you might not need one. I mean, it's not for everyone. If it depends on your personal situation. What you should, as you get, let's say, through school, you want to sit down with a certified. There are personal money management financial planners who are certified, who are skilled in all these things, and you normally find them through family and friends that work with somebody, and they'll tell you, hey, this person's good or whatever, and you sit down and talk to them, and they lay out a whole strategy for you on all the things we just talked about, related to your investments, insurance, wills, estate and trusts, um, all kinds of things, that talk to you about. So down the road, they would set up a plan for you. And from a personal money management standpoint, that would be a pretty good thing to do. Okay, anything else?
Hey, no, I don't really have specific questions.
Okay.
One thing I know I could throw out there though is like when I was just from stuff that I've looked at before is buying new cars, like a brand new car is almost never a good idea. Like it's if you were to point at one thing to say what keeps America like poor overall, probably wanting to own a new vehicle is at the top of that list.
Well, do you see my screen where I'm scrolling here, where my hand is, my cursor?
Oh yeah.
Clark's got guides on how to buy a new car and how to buy a used car, but I'll give you the Reader's Digest version, okay? I've always bought new cars, but if you buy a new car and you either pay cash or get a loan for only a year or two, and you drive that thing into the ground, a new car is fine. Where people get into trouble is they don't pay cash, they buy it on time, You know that there's some new cars now, they have 5, 6, even 7-year loans on a new car?
Yeah, that's a bad idea.
That is a very bad idea. That is you want to talk about getting upside down on a car. You're going to get upside down on a car real fast if that happens. That means the value of the car is going to be worth less than your loan, and then you're in trouble. And so if you cannot afford or have the cash, let's say, to buy a new car or a 2-year loan or something like that, a 2-year loan's fine because cars should last you 6, 7, 8 years at least. Um, but the ideally for a college student, the thing to do is um, normally about 2 years old, a 2-year-old car, 3-year-old car, you hit the sweet spot because the first year, the most expensive item. What do you think, Tim, is the most expensive item on your car during the first year or two?
What do you mean?
What do you think? What do you think is the most expensive part of owning a brand new car during the first, let's say, 2 years?
Depreciation.
You got it. Depreciation. Let somebody else pay for the depreciation. If you pick it up in year 3, you're good. You're in good shape because if you buy a car, the average price of a new car, because everybody nowadays, I don't, not me, I don't buy them, but they got to have these SUVs. They got to have these $40,000 SUVs, 50,000. I buy these $25,000 sedans that get twice the gas mileage, and they last forever. But anyway, if you take the average price of a brand new car in this country is $35,000. Not everybody has $35,000 cash, so they're gonna get a 5, 6 year loan, or do worse, they'll lease it. That's the worst thing you do is lease a car, um, because after the 2 or 3 year lease, you don't even own the thing anymore. You paid all that money and now it's gone. You still need a car. But anyway, so I don't like leasing. Um, but I wouldn't advise that to anyone or very few people. But I would say you either buy a new car, you buy a frugal new car. In other words, not a $40,000 car. You buy a $25,000 sedan. They work beautifully. And if you're going to get it with maybe a 1, 2-year loan, 3-year loan tops, and drive it, put 200,000 miles on it, fine. If you don't have that kind of money, then you get like a 3-year-old car, spend 12 grand on it, with no loan, probably want to pay cash on that. And then you're getting a car with probably 40, 50,000 miles on it. It's already been depreciated. It's in good shape. A good place to go, I'm not too sure how you would get to, there's different avenues, is go to a rental car company like Hertz or Avis, because they buy cars new and then after a couple years they sell them. And if you can get a rental car that's been used for a couple of years, you can get a good quality one at quite a price. How old's your car, Tim?
Uh, Mine's a 2016. And
Nice.
I did buy used, just like you said.
Good.
It
Good.
was 40. It would have been 40 grand brand new, but you get it, and it's like less than 20 because
Yeah.
it's just older.
Yeah. And cars nowadays, Tim, back when I was say in college, cars were worth garbage. They wouldn't last more than a couple years. You'd get 50,000 on them and things would start going. The cars nowadays last 200,000, no, as long as you maintenance it. Every five, it's debatable, but I like every 5,000 miles or so you change the oil. Spend $50 every 5,000 miles, change the oil, and have them check the brakes for you and things like that. Um, if you do that, the car will last forever. You can get a couple 100,000 on it easily. And I run my car, as you know, I drive when we're in college, I drive a lot. I drive about 25,000 miles a year. So I run them. I'll 8 years before I buy a new one. I'll run them up to between 150 and 200,000. And then, I feel like I get my money's worth because it just they keep running. The quality of cars are very, very, very good right now. So it's a myth to think that you gotta get a 7-year loan and spend 50. I know some people spend 50, $60,000 on a new car, and it's like, wow, I could, that's one-fourth of a or one-third of a house. So I think that's a little too much. Uh, I wouldn't do that, but I agree with you 100%. And so for anybody listening, that's true. If you're in a bind and you need wheels, get a good used car as opposed to brand new. So I agree with that. That's a very good topic we did not talk about, so I'm glad we covered that. So I'm glad you brought that up.
It's just one of those things that, I kind of like, I had an epiphany, and I like reevaluated everything. It's one of those things, you don't.
Besides your home, a car is it. A car is one of the most expensive things you'll ever own. A home's another thing too, but that's not necessarily a virus thing. A car is because we need transportation to get to work and go to the grocery store. And let's see, a house is a totally different. You could spend 2 hours talking about how to buy a house. Make sure you get a good real estate agent. And really, you're buying a house not always for an investment or personal money management. It's a personal life decision. You're going to be living there, and for a number of years, you want to like it. So that stands to make sense. But that's a whole nother subject altogether about buying a house.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not quite there yet.
The only thing I'll say about that, try to get your 20% down because you don't want to pay what's called private mortgage insurance, which is expensive. So if you go to buy a house someday, you want to try to strive for 20, get the best, if assuming you're going to not pay cash and pay, you're going to get what's called a mortgage, which is a loan on the house, that you want to get, you want at least 20% cash down on the house. That way you won't need to get private mortgage insurance because that is expensive. I made that mistake my first house I bought, and I did my darndest to keep paying ahead of time. I would pay off the equity ahead of time to get up to my 20% so I could kiss the private mortgage insurance goodbye. It's expensive. So that's just one of the little things that I learned, a mistake I made that don't put like very little cash down on a house. You're going to be paying all these extra fees, and plus you won't get as good of an interest rate on your mortgage. The more money you can put down, the better mortgage rate you'll get. It's helpful. Okay, I guess that's about it if you don't have anything else. So I'll end the recording now. Andrea, are you still on?
I'm here.
So if I end the recording, which I'm about to do, oops, I'm going to stop. I apologize. I'm still sharing the screen. I'm going to get off now. And there we go. We stopped.